Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Facilities and Operations Subcommittee for Monday, December 2nd, 2019. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Agia?
Here.
Mr. Costa?
Here.
Mr. Hetzler?
Here. I'd ask you please join me for a salute to our flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Welcome and thank you, everyone. Number of items on this evening's agenda. The first one is a discussion regarding the school resource officer SOP. So I know that this was a topic that was discussed at a prior subcommittee meeting, and then it went to the full committee for a discussion item. And then I believe it got referred back here. So what I'd like to do is first thank Lieutenant Correa for the Fall Police Department for being here from the Special Operations Unit. Certainly, if anyone has any questions, we'll certainly have that discussion. But I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent, see if he's got any initial remarks on it. If not, I know Mr. Aguirre or Mr. Hetzler may have some questions or discussion. So, Mr. Superintendent?
So this is a living document that we've gone back and forth with the police department. School committee adopted it last year, and as a living document, we're to review it yearly and speak with the police if there's any questions and things that we'd like to renegotiate. As of this moment, I don't have any specific areas within the MOU or the SOP that is problematic to me. I do want to thank the police, sergeant, all the SROs, and the lieutenant, and the chief as well for open dialogue conversations that we've had. We have a pretty good working relationship. We have a great working relationship, and I've found the police to be very amenable and flexible to our needs as new items arise, and there's always new things and new needs. So Ken and I can answer questions of the members of the committee, and we appreciate the lieutenant to be here to answer other questions.
Thank you. So I'll open it up. Does anyone have any questions regarding it, or anybody have any?
Well, I have some. So
Stay.
the last time we talked was a different set of folks. I think the sergeant and I don't think you were here, right?
No.
But it was a different set of folks. My concern with the both the SOP and the MOU, there was two different documents, and they didn't necessarily all agree in a bunch of different areas. So we brought those out at the meeting. I don't think those have been rectified per se. So I think that that's something that's an ongoing. I don't think we're going to solve that today. But I do think that there's some pieces of the MOU that were not being followed, or the SOP that were not being followed, or they conflict with each other.
Which one was that, as far as the MOU?
I don't have it in front of me, but we had talked about it.
One of them was the meetings between the SRO supervisor and the building principal monthly, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that was
one of them. Trying to think.
It said communication over, like, one of them was about evaluation, not that they're evaluation per se, but that principals of the schools were going to be notified and allowed to weigh in on how whoever's the SRO is doing. And then at the time, the folks that were in front of us, oh, that doesn't happen. A couple of things like that, nothing really earth-shattering. The other one was the issue of I believe that it needs to say somewhere in the job description of a school resource officer that they help maintain order in the school building, and that's nowhere to be found in the agreements. It said, oh, that's the format that the state says and all these other things. Quite frankly, in my opinion, as one member, we're paying a lot of money for school resource officers to help us maintain order, in my opinion. If that's not the real role, then I wonder whether we need to be paying all that. And I don't expect you to answer that today, but
I can
that's...
answer part of it. Myself and our department, Sergeant Furtado, who took over at the beginning of the school year, we do believe that that's the main goal of the school resource officers, maintain order. I think we all know the real reason why we have a school resource officer in the schools is to make it a safe place, that the kids that show up in the morning are going home at the end of the day. They do a good job of that. We have 9 school resource officers. We had a recent turnaround, just for change of personnel. And the officers we have in school now, we feel make schools very safe. Many have military experience, good with kids, and they do realize they are there to maintain order. They take action when need be. I've got some of our reports since just this beginning of this school year. There have been 36 individuals. These could be people outside the school also conducting actions on the school ground that have been charged, either arrested or summoned into court. So as far as order, they are there to maintain order. Maybe the MOU doesn't specifically say that. I know Sergeant Furtado's directive is like, they're not to tell any school or principal, or that's not a problem, the new laws, we can't do anything about it. They are there to take action and enforce any laws and maintain order.
I mean, I'm happy to hear that. That's sort of what I believe,
Yep.
but it's not in there. So it's sort of like we played it at the last meeting, the issue of the new laws and the regulations
Yeah.
related to when the student can get arrested and whether that's, has the legislature helped with that, or have they taken handcuffs on all of us to not be able to maintain order? We discussed that. I think that's an issue that we need to look at.
Oh, it is, the
Has
new
it-
laws do handcuff the police, but the police can take action, whether referrals, stepping in to de-escalate, they are trained in that, and they do take action when it is.
Has there been any changes over the last, I want to say we met in the summer,
Oh, yeah.
the last, has there been changes related to the new laws and what police can do or not do in the court cases, anything like that?
The
would
same,
change the-
same laws since the recent the reforms went through, but they can take action. Like I said, just since the beginning of the school year, 36 people have been charged. I've got the list of reports here. Some of them have been students. I'm not going to mention names. Talbot School, there's a charge for assault and battery, simple assault and
And
battery.
we go through, we get all the notices
Okay.
from the superintendent on when somebody gets, so my concern isn't around that piece
Yep.
as much as what is it allowed to maintain order in the school? So if we were told at the last meeting, by, once again, it wasn't you or the
Yep.
folks, it was a different regime, that the person that was in charge of the school resources actually stated, for the record, that we have to let the situation get out of hand before we act.
No.
And it went, but just hear me out. When that was said, that was, in my opinion, totally ridiculous. And that's not what we or anybody wants, to let the situation get out of hand before they act.
Oh, absolutely not. I guarantee you, Sergeant Furtado, under her strict direction, is they are not to, they're to intervene, de-escalate, physically separate the kids, do whatever they have to do. If it rises to a crime, a serious crime, they can actually make an arrest. But they're not let the things to escalate to that degree.
Yeah.
But there's no more law on, and you know this one, on the disruption of
Different school assembly.
school assembly.
Right, so that hinders the process.
That's the one that.
For first offense.
Yes, so there's no other, that's the one area that everyone was concerned about, that we could use as a blanket charge for any of the kind of real disruptive behavior in schools. They took that out of the law. That was the one big piece.
Yeah. My question, though, is, since we last met, I'm of the belief that there's some court cases, another district took this to court, and actually was able to clarify with the Supreme Court or whoever, to say whether you can actually have the first offense. We always said, how did he get to the second offense if you don't charge the person with a first offense and adjudicate it in court? That was always the argument. And I think there's new guidance on that. And are we getting that guidance? Is the school getting it? Do you know about that?
We have no guidance on any of that. And I
From
get
any
all-
kind of
not from the-
court cases or
Not from
any?
your association, not from our attorneys, nothing.
How about you guys on the police?
No, we've still followed the same procedure.
Yeah.
The disturbing school assembly, obviously, that's been taken off the books for us. But any other act, if there's a fight, physical fight breaks out, kids are being charged. If it rises to that.
I think there's been some changes. Maybe check it out, get back to the superintendent, maybe you can send us a memo on that if somebody gives you info, as you normally would send it to us.
Yeah,
But I do think that there's some...
You would get it too, from your site, from your association. So there's been no changes.
All right, well, if there has been, then hopefully we get a copy of it. But I think that
Well, definitely.
there's some movement on it, I think, to the better, so that you guys can do your job, that we can help maintain order in the school, and that students have to understand they're in school to be educated. So I think what you're saying, I agree with wholeheartedly. We just got to get, if there's any other pieces, let's keep pushing it. If we have to go to the legislature and get them to, make some changes to it so that we can actually help us, we need to do that too. So whatever guidance you can have, but I do appreciate what you've said, and I wholeheartedly agree with what you
Yeah,
said.
like I said, like even if the MOU doesn't specifically state, about law, taking order and taking control of the situation, the officer's stepping in, they're not
Yeah,
letting
so,
it get out of control.
and my last point to that is, the reason why we have this on here is because it's a living document and we can't change it.
Right.
So now I think with a new regime of yourself, of Sergeant Furtado, and maybe you need to just sit down together, look at it to make sure that the two maybe we don't need both. Maybe we just need one that doesn't conflict with each other, that articulates a little bit of what you said. I think it'll make me feel a little better, but we still have this one in place as it's going and things need to change, so let's try to put them down. So I appreciate it and I yield.
Thank you. Mr. Hansel?
I have nothing, just to Committee Managia's point, if there's something we can do to help out, like we gotta write a letter to the legislature or whatnot to try to get a law changed in order to facilitate the role of the SRO. I'm on board with that. Other than that, I think it's a, good SOP, good memorandum of understanding, so I'm good. Thank you.
So just a couple of comments. One, obviously, there's been a change. Sergeant Furtado's there now. Also, the SROs in the school, I think, for the most part, maybe a couple who have stayed on board, but I think that overall there's been a change in offices in the school. One of the things that I would like to see, and I don't know what the availability is for your personnel, but and I've talked to the superintendent about this, and I understand that Sergeant Furtado's obviously a female, but I think it's helpful to have someone other than the SRO sergeant as a female. And I don't know if that's just a staffing issue in terms of, individuals or being able to select individuals for that. But I think, when SROs are interacting in the schools with students, that I think that female presence is helpful.
We do have
And
Sarah
even-
Reese, Officer Sarah Reese, was recently transferred. She's
Oh,
an
she's
SRO.
she SRO? All right,
Yeah,
beautiful.
comes with major crimes,
Oh,
division
Is that good?
experience.
it's gotta be.
Sarah
new.
Reese just came about 3 weeks ago, a month.
Okay, all
I
right.
haven't even met her yet.
No, and that's a fantastic choice.
That's been the major crimes
Sometimes
division,
you need to do
investigating
sexual
sexual assault
assaults, yeah.
cases, so she brings a lot of experience.
Yeah, good. All right, beautiful. That was my concern, that, and I didn't know if it was an issue of staffing in terms of, offices available,
No.
what units they're in, but,
We select officers based on, obviously, qualifications for the job. And again, like I said, our number one goal, above everything else, is school security. We want to make sure people are there for the right reasons and providing a safe environment. We all know across the country there have been active shooter incidents in all the schools. And across the country, a lot of the SROs have not performed up the way they should have.
Right.
And I guarantee you, the SROs we have, even the ones we had prior, not knocking anybody we had prior to them, the SROs we have now, they're going to take correct action. The schools are in safe hands with the officers we have. If you ever remember, Brandon Pacheco, Derek Ogles, Ross, I mean, guarantee you, somebody shows up to those schools to cause problems, they pick the wrong school.
that's always good to hear. And having, like I said, I didn't realize that Sarah Reese, Officer Reese came over. That's great.
And Sergeant Furtado, she's a working sergeant.
Yeah.
She's in the schools. If an officer's tied up on an investigation, she's filling in for them. She's not sitting around waiting for a phone call from principal. She's actually out there working.
The other point that I would make, and it's actually Kevin's point, but if you can check with Attorney Joyce, I think what Kevin's referring to is case law. I wonder if there was a case that was if this piece has been challenged. If you can ask Attorney Joyce, if you can just look into, see if there's any, I'm thinking, is that what you mean, like case law, like someone challenged a particular case?
Yeah, so from what I gathered, that it used to be that they had one, everybody knows the intent of the legislature wasn't to say everybody can get a free rein.
Right.
There's been cases that were challenged in court
Right.
that have been sent down that said now that becomes a precedent to say No, the first offense doesn't apply 10 times. Like you can, like you get it, you document it, so the second time the kid did it, you
Right.
could go back to the old rule. So
Right.
we had always thought that they got rid of it altogether.
Right.
I think
So
that
there
they've
was no
made some
such thing as a
intervening.
first offense and then
Correct, how do you get to the second? Then there's some
Gotcha.
guidance on that.
Right.
So
So
now,
it's
I
good.
want to say that if I read the guidance correctly, it looks like as if after your first offense, that it is back on the table.
Yeah.
So a student that disrupts the school assembly
Second time or more.
2, 3, 4 times, right now, we've been saying, oh, sorry, unless they do something real bad, we can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's no longer that way because there's been some case law that says,
Okay.
you know,
So we'll get
Yeah.
some further clarification on that, because that would be helpful. That would be another tool for the officers, that if any event that they were aware that this person's had multiple situations where they've disturbed the school assembly, or they, you know, and they had that information and it was on good grounds, that they could take additional action other than a warning or whatever the case may be. And it may not always warrant an arrest. I mean, you know, the biggest tool, I think, that, and I won't speak for you, Lieutenant, but I think you'd agree with me, the biggest tool that an officer has is their ability to de-escalate a situation
Yeah, correct.
before you have to use any other tools that you have available to you. So I'm sure they're skilled in that, particularly in a school setting. I'm sure their training leads.
Oh, they're
toward
trained in
that.
de-escalation
Yeah.
and everything. Was there a specific incident where an officer didn't take action and something escalated? Is that what this came about?
we went about, last year, we were debating whether that happened, and we don't want to get into too many situations, but I do think that, in my personal opinion, as one member, that students understand what they can get away with too. So if I do X thing over and over and nothing happens to me, even though the officer's there and could say, hey, you're disturbing a school, you need to settle yourself down, whatever. If you continue to do that same thing, that kid's gonna keep doing it, human nature. And that, in my opinion, happens.
Okay.
It doesn't escalate to the point where we gotta have an arrest or something, but a lot of times we look the other way. And it creates a dangerous situation for a teacher, for a school. So I think once we get back to the basics of, you know, a person in a uniform used to walk in a building and people would respect it, you know, the students would respect it. We don't get that as much as we needed to. So I'm just trying to, let's pull it back a little bit to.
Well, there's been some changes since last year, so incidents happened last year I can't really answer for. Sergeant Furtado took over. She's been an SRO for years. She's been in major crimes for years. One of the first things she had was the SROs got rid of the khaki pants and the collar shirt, like I'm wearing now. They're showing up in full police blue uniform. It's one of the changes she made. So you get that stronger police presence inside the school. There's a personnel change. Not that anybody who was transferred out did anything wrong. It was just time for change for some people. And we think that we got guys with military experience in the schools right now. Like, we have guys that have combat experience. Like I said before, we all know the real reason why we have a school resource officer inside the school is to protect the kids.
Need to respond.
Everything else comes secondary to that.
Yeah,
I
I hear
think
you.
right now we have good people in place that can take care of that. Sarah Reese has military experience.
Yeah.
Sergeant Furtado, wealth of experience on the job also. And so the school is in very safe hands with the officers we have. And I guarantee you're not going to get any complaints from principals about an officer let something escalate beyond. They know, we don't have to tell them, 'cause they know already the kind of officer that's not going to let something escalate. They're going to step in, try and de-escalate it first. If strong action is to be taken, they're going to take the stronger action.
Good.
And, you know, I know some of those individuals personally, outside of work, and they are types of individuals that certainly not gonna, you know, let something like that happen. So, there was one other thing. Oh, last point I just wanna make, and then I'll give you the last word, Mr. Hetzler. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just want to make a couple things.
But if there's something in either the MOA or the SOP, you know, one of the things that was talked about was the SRO sergeant meeting with each of the building principals monthly. We were talking about that. We got 16 sites. I mean, that's 16 meetings a month. To me, that seems like a lot.
Section 3.
Yeah,
Right,
my,
so maybe you're talking with Sergeant Furtado, Lieutenant.
my personal
if
opinion
that's-
is all the officers have open dialogue with the principals. Sergeant Furtado is like, she's a working sergeant. The principals contact her on a time off, and there's an incident with the kids. So I think scheduling 16 formal meetings
Yeah.
a month is a little much. If there's an issue, clearly they know how to contact her.
Or
As long as
maybe
we keep
open-
open communications,
Yeah.
which we have right now. Again, there was a couple of incidents with students. Incidents happened over the weekend, late at night. She was contacted by the principals, and she helped resolve the situation. So I think everybody's busy. Sergeant Furtado's busy. All the principals are busy. So I think the 16 formal meetings
Yeah,
a
so
month.
maybe that's
is,
something we can look at
Yeah,
and
so you
change
word
or
it somehow,
amend or-
open communications,
Right.
they all
In the
know how to
ev-
contact the
right.
sergeant.
In the
almost,
event
so.
that there's an issue, that the sergeant will be available to discuss that, which she is already. And I know that because she's had contact with principals already. Ms. Hansel, and then superintendent?
Right, so we hear a lot about the schools are safe, if, they pick this school, that school's safe. What about the schools without an SRO? What's the game plan moving forward in the future? Are we gonna look at hiring more SROs? Is there a way that, I don't know if the police force, I know it's a funding issue, becomes who's gonna fund it, but I'm concerned, right? We talk about, we wanna protect the students. Well, only 9 schools are protected at any given time, if we're lucky, if there's not an incident happening. To that sense where someone could just walk in and there would be an immediate police presence. So it's just something to think about. I'm not sure we're gonna get the answers here, but I just wanna mention it because I don't see things magically getting better in society. And it's not, I know we have them at the high school and the middle schools and particular elementary schools, but this can happen at any level. So it's just something to think about.
Yeah, without a doubt, and I will, again, I think the randomness when it comes to some of the schools, we don't broadcast when those officers are gonna be moving around, so,
Right.
You're right, in terms of coverage, are there times, yeah, throughout the day, there are times, but the reality is that I think we do a good job covering all of our schools, and, I don't wanna go too far into it, because, but, good point, we'll have to take a look at that, and see what the availability would be, if the funding and the resources are available, to have that conversation as a group, and with the city to determine whether or not there are resources available, or maybe it's, our commitment over a period of time
Right.
to fund additional positions, which I don't think will be met with any resistance from the police, because that
Right.
certainly increases the ranks. It gives more opportunity for other officers to go through the academy, so we can talk about that going forward.
Any new grants too?
And if there's an incident at the school, it's not just the school resource officer going to be responding.
I
Especially during the
understand.
day shift, we have all the sector cars, sector sergeants, we have the major crimes division, their whole division works during the day shift. Vice unit has an alternating schedule, the street crimes unit, gang unit, so there were a lot of officers we can mobilize if need be. So if a call comes out, granted, it may not be an officer at that school, the full
Someone will be there within
school
minutes.
day, people are going to come very quickly.
Absolutely.
There's no one far away from police response.
Thank you.
Dr. Malone?
In terms of overall operational security, we continue to train and do drills in terms of response, work with the police and the first responders regarding their response to our needs at times. My goal is to get, and I've done it each year, but my goal is to get a security guard at least in every building. So it's like a funding priority. So each year we've added one. We do have ongoing discussions and negotiations with the union regarding their package in terms of pay and benefits, make sure we're competitive, but that's an area where we can at least have a ground level force protection at each site underneath the SROs, if you will, in terms of how we go. We're down to 7 plus a sergeant now.
Correct.
We did operate about 13 once. I wasn't here then. The grant was
Right.
lost.
Right.
And we've been able to maintain that. That's something we can always discuss during the budget season in terms of if that's something that we want to fund. I will say that they have, this, adding another female, we talked about this when Sergeant Furtado came on and made the new assignments. Noticing that it was all males. The new assignments have been outstanding. I think we only have one that was carried over, other than Sergeant Furtado, in terms of who's been assigned.
Yeah, Mom, he's a good guy, yeah. Like I said, the ones who left, no,
Yeah, not
because they didn't do anything wrong. It was
It's a
just,
new group of folks.
some people just need change.
We also have new assignments in terms of buildings, and that's been helpful. We decreased, we got one at RPA, which has been great. I haven't had, I know there was conversations that was going to be 2. That's been helpful. The issue about the meetings, and that's a piece of language under Section 3 that I just wanted to highlight. I mean, that language could easily be something around, just that they're gonna have monthly open communication between all three. You're right, a formal meeting 16 times is a pain in the neck, trying to even just schedule something like that.
Again, like, yeah, 'cause, so the principal's all busy.
But I know that right now, these folks are meeting. You're right, Sergeant Furtado is in buildings.
Yeah, she's
all
working
the
sergeant,
buildings.
she's not hanging around.
No, and, you know, when we
When you
communicate
get
with
calls.
her 24 hours a day, you know, and through the weekends and all the stuff that we do. So, you know, but that we could definitely clean up some of that language. And then, you know, I'll get the guidance on the find out from Attorney Joyce if there is any sort of guidance case law challenge that's come out, because my association or your association has not provided us with anything on that yet, but there might be some case law, and you're right, laws are made two ways, actual laws and then case law.
Challenge, right?
So that's something I'll take a look at. I do know that already in my budget planning, I already have at least one security guard that I've, you know, as I'm thinking about what am I gonna bring forward to the committee, that's something we're gonna do. I think the uniform change was great. You know, I know why we ended up with the brown and the tan. It was to soften the look
But you
across
can
the
know the brown and
country.
the tan for the same reason they don't have like maintaining order in the school as the
Right.
number one bullet point is, it's a whole new society now,
Right.
and it's all touchy-feely, so they have to remove the strong language, and that's why that strong language
not
is
there.
in the MOU, but clearly, the chief's philosophy, all the way down my philosophy, Sergeant Furtado's definite philosophy is like, the number one priority is a safe environment for the kids in the
Well, and I
school.
think Kevin spoke to that.
Yeah.
Before, when you saw an officer in uniform, had that command presence, you know, it spoke volumes. You didn't even have to act, just the presence, you know, raised things to a different level. And then over time, we know all of the issues that have gone on nationwide that have sort of softened that. And so now you can't have that perception. You're gonna have a more soft, gentler, touchy-feely type of approach to it. And I think in some levels, it may have sent the wrong message to students and others that, all right, well, yeah, I see them, but you don't have that same effect. And so I'm glad that Sergeant Furtado saw that, made that change. I support it. You know, I personally have dealt with a number of ESLOs over the years. All professionals always did their jobs well. You know, I agree, yeah, there's change, people move in different departments, they get promoted. So having a new group isn't necessarily to speak to any problems that we had, but just opportunity for other officers to take on new roles. And so,
that's what it is.
you know, I know some of the individuals now, they're good officers, and all we're asking is that if your officers are seeing an issue, that they're through the chain of command, expressing what those are, and if there's a need. On our side, we're gonna ask the superintendent, brief the committee about what those are, and that we share those with Sergeant Furtado and through you, through the chain if it needs to, so that we can work together, because,
I'm sure Mr. Chief is getting plenty of calls from Sergeant Furtado, right?
oh, I'm sure,
Yes.
I'm sure.
I'm sure I'm watching on
hesitation.
TV right
And for
now.
many, many years, you know, for many, many years at the high school, you know, knows the lay of the land, knows the job inside and out, so.
Yeah,
thank
she's
you.
around pegging around holes. She's did that job for years. She knows the ins and outs. She has a good working relationship with everyone in the school department, and she holds everybody accountable. And she picked the right people to work under her.
So if you can just look it over, maybe
Yep.
have a conversation, if it's okay with you, LT, with
Absolutely.
Sergeant Furtado, and then if she sees something that needs, I'm sure she'll go through her chain of command to change or make suggestions. You know, some of the stuff may be outdated. She may see stuff, have a vision for something she wants to implement that's not in there. Maybe this hamstrings her on some front. So, you know, we're always open to that kind of dialogue, to take a look at the document, see, make sure it's working for both sides, and, you know.
Like Mr. Agas stated, obviously maintaining order is number one priority we have. As we all know, why that's probably not the first bullet point. And even the state recommended MOU. It's very politically correct.
Soft, yeah.
Yeah, more about like helping kids with their algebra homework and playing volleyball than the real reason why the SROs are there. But they are there to maintain order, and they do maintain order. And I guarantee we don't have a complaint regarding in the school resource officer allowing something escalate to the point where it's out of control. They're going to step in and take action before that.
Beautiful. Lieutenant, Thank you very much for your time tonight. Any further questions or anything? No. Thank you again. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Take care.
And thanks, Lindsay. The next agenda item is the topic of advertising in the schools, and I believe we have our athletic director, Mr. Buston. Thank you for being here, and I guess we'll turn it over to Lieutenant, if you want to lay the groundwork, and then
All right,
Mr.
so-
Buston, or
So,
right to Mr. Buston?
the issue of advertising in schools, is under school committee policy, we have a policy around what we can and cannot do. We're here tonight to talk about some ideas with the athletic department and get permission to proceed. So I'll turn it over to the athletic director for discussion.
So we have some programs that have been going on for many years before I even became athletic director, mostly with the Durfee Hilltopper Athletic Foundation, and they would sell banners and they would get the advertising on the banners, and that's in the packet that I passed out, and that money would go right to the Durfee Hilltopper Athletic Foundation. They would have the banners made, and then what the athletic director would do was hang the banners up. So they're looking to get away from that, just because it's kind of, it takes a lot of work to do that, which is fine, but keeping the banners up, the banners were getting weathered and beat up, so then they would have to renew the banners, and the Durfee Hilltopper Athletic Foundation purchased a new scoreboard for Durfee Athletics, and it's can be used at basketball games, volleyball games, and wrestling matches, and it's a LED digital scoreboard. It's beautiful. We use it for our volleyball season, and we're able to put the kids' pictures up on the scoreboard, and we're able to do get the crowd cheering, and it's a really nice. If you haven't seen it on Twitter, I put a lot of stuff on Twitter. What the board can do. So part of the thing that this scoreboard can do, and from the company that we bought the scoreboard from, Sideline Interactive, they have advertisement programs. So you can sell advertisement, and it can run on the scoreboard during the game. And you charge different things. And in the packet, I put a lot of examples of what other schools have been doing, sent to me from the company, Sideline Interactive. This particular one right here is kind of like what our scoreboard looks like. And I wish I had it in color, but I don't. But so they could show the players playing on the court, and then they could flash in Mexican Grill on the border restaurant, and just the company would just pay to have their advertisement ran, and we could play it every game. So I guess asking permission, for that to be okay for us to do that.
Any questions? Mr. Hetzel?
So how much money is normally generated each year, and where does the money go?
So the money all goes to the Durfee Hilltopper Athletic Foundation, and what they do on a yearly basis is our coaches will submit a request, like we're looking for some item. That's a pretty big ticket item that might be out of the realm of the possibility of the regular athletic budget to get. Like for this scoreboard was $9,000, and that's not something that really I just have. I mean, I get the revolving account, but you don't want to get the revolving account depleted too far. So the Hilltopper Foundation would purchase items that would help the school and help the athletes. And shooting gun for the basketball teams, big, gigantic ball goes in, the ball pops right back out, so somebody can shoot by themselves. Batting cage for the baseball team.
So I understand what it's used for. So how much is normally generated?
Well, with the advertising, the banner program, it would cost $500 to get the banner made. So they would charge the company $500 up front just to get it made, and then after that, it was $250 per year.
Yep.
And this, we haven't really discussed what the cost would be for this one yet. The banners would be up all the time, so I think that would be a little bit more money. This would just run during basketball games, wrestling matches, and volleyball games, so I think they might think to cut the price down a little bit. We haven't really talked about what they would charge yet. There are some suggestions from the company, and from examples of what schools have done. And I think it was, one of them was like $100, just to have, and the money would go to the Durfee Hilltop Athletic Foundation.
So one of my concerns is if there's something you really need, I think we can cover it, right? If the athletic program needs something, I don't understand why we wouldn't know about it, so we could try to purchase it ourselves, right? That's our job, right? Our job is there to provide you what you need to do your
Yeah.
job to reach the kids. So, and I understand donations, and this is great. We accept donations all the time. Every month we're accepting thousands and thousands of dollars of donations, so that's great. At what point is it going to be too much where we're advertising, like we're in the business of advertising all the time? Like, it just seems tacky to me. Like, what are we doing, right? And I like having a digital scoreboard. I would ask that we purchase the digital scoreboard, that we didn't have to go out and ask for donations, right? So I'm just trying to understand, like, how much advertising am I going to be subjected to go watch a football game? You know what I mean? And is it at some point take away from just that like hometown feel of being at a Durfee football game?
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's my only concern. And I'm obviously we accept donations all the time, and I think it's great. With that I yield.
So a couple of things. When I was previously on the committee, a long time ago, we didn't have any advertising. We had pushed for advertising at the same time as we were pushing the superintendent at that time to make a in-house 501c3 so that we would do the work and then, get people a nonprofit within ourselves. That took a couple of years, and then no advertising went up. I got off the committee at the time, but we had approved some advertising in the gym, which is sort of like the banners, and I think at the football games, which I'm not opposed to. I think it's everywhere you go, every other school has it, and you want it to be a varsity Division I, like we want to be the best. So sometimes you have to raise some money to do some of those things. So I'm not opposed to that. What I would like is, before this goes, or when it gets to the full committee, that we discuss whether why do we need the foundation, and how did that happen, that the school committee at one time so we could do our own advertising and get the money. Now it's to the foundation that has to get requests, but then those requests don't get done through the budget necessarily, through the whole process. So I'd like to keep it in-house. The foundation is a great organization, great people. I think they run a golf tournament, they raise money, and they're Durfee people, I get it. I just think that the advertising, whether it's in here or when you look at theater, you look at other things that we should have a policy and the ability to make money and without having it go to the foundation, so that you could build up a advertising thing, then come to the superintendent and we say, okay, we got 20 grand and we're going to use it for this, that, or whatever. I don't know the history of how it got to this point with them doing it, but I do think that we should move this forward to the full committee, but at the same time get some answers to some of the other stuff. Like you had mentioned about the scoreboard only being for some games, I think we should do both. Like if the banners are, I don't find that to be bad. The one that's on the wall was like 18 or 20, banners or whatever it is. Yeah. I don't find that to be bad at all. I think it's actually helping those people that are very good to, probably those people not only donated to Durfee, they donate to all kinds of things. So advertising those businesses that support us, I have no problem with, but I don't think it needs, I think the letter is asking to change from the banner program to the advertising. I think we should just keep it as, let's talk about the scoreboard, because that's the real issue here. Whether they do the banner program, we do it, you do it through the athletic department, I think should be a part of the discussion as well. So when it does go to the full committee, I would want to get some of those answers. And I'm assuming that none of this has to go out for bid.
No, well,
Like the scoreboard purchase, did that get bid? I'm
yeah,
not sure it
because
must, because it's
if
9,000.
it's over, yeah, and we won't get the tax-free. So if it goes to a school, then the company won't have the tax. So I would purchase it, and I would get the 3 bids.
As I'm saying, so the scoreboard itself, the physical thing, went through that process?
Yes.
To get, not this company, whatever the name of the
No,
company is.
Sideline
Yeah.
Interactive, right.
So
I mean,
now that we have the piece, now if we're gonna sell advertising, does that have to go out to bid to let other people, like how much is their percentage gonna be? Does that have to go out for multiple people? Because this place isn't the only one that probably has access to know, like if you say we can pop in the kid's picture playing, you can pop in an advertisement the same way probably.
Right, it's on, yeah, they gave
So-
us a computer with the scoreboard.
Yeah, so I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, food for thought when it comes to the full committee. You might want to check that out to see what, does it need to go to bid? Should we go out to bid? Is there other companies that do the same thing that would like to, you know, have
Okay.
access to it? But I'm not opposed to it. I do think it needs to get forwarded, and then we can have more discussion. With
I
that,
guess like
yield.
with a football program too, so if we have a football program, which we don't have, but if I would like to get a football program started, and you sell advertisements in the back of the football program, and that money would come to the athletic department, correct? And that's.
Let's see, why not?
You could do that.
We should do that,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Right,
But wherever that money goes is part of what I had mentioned earlier, that in the past we had, if it's not a nonprofit, we had to create like a school department nonprofit, and there was a process to go through so that the person that's donating gets a nonprofit donation, but it's also under the control of the school department. So I think that's probably similar to what I'm definitely in support of it, just like move it on. I yield.
Thanks. I'll just say this, that, so my understanding of the reason behind the Athletic Foundation and its creation was because in years past, we didn't have the funding. Quite frankly, we were laying off teachers and administrators and staff within our classrooms. And so to make the argument that we would then purchase new school uniforms for athletics or, you know, add coaches or, you know, big ticket items like, you know, batting cages or scoreboards and et cetera, we just couldn't afford it. And so there was a local group of alum that said, hey, wait a minute, we could put together a foundation, and with the emphasis being on the money we raise goes directly back into the athletic programs. And I don't know the exact number, I just sent a text to someone on the board. Do you know the exact number they've raised over the years?
no, I don't
I know it's
the
hundreds of
exact
thousands.
number.
I know it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. It
Two-
used to be the
Two organizations
right. Used to be
combined
one
also.
in the fall. Used to be the fundraiser. They used to do downtown around the fall, around homecoming, around this time of year, and then the golf tournament, which I know generated, you know, lots of money. And so, you know, that's where the sort of the, you know, the emphasis or the start of it came, was we just couldn't afford a lot of the extra stuff. We just have now been able to invest some money in the intramural program for equipment, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's, I believe, why they did it. At that time, we weren't able to do it on our own, and I think there were people in the city who said, you know, it's a shame when I go to a game and, you know, students have uniforms that are old and tattered, and we should, on a rotating basis, have the coaches submit their requests to the AD. The AD meets with the foundation and says, okay, here are the requests for this year. The foundation looks at their budget and says, okay, this is, you know, these are the ones we can approve this year, and when we get more money, come back, and they keep doing that year after year. And so, you know, whether it's done in-house or not, I quite frankly think, I mean, personally, don't want to see us get into the business of fundraising. I think this organization does it well. They have the connections citywide. They reach out, they raise a good number of dollars on an annual basis. I don't know that I'd want to change that, because that means you or someone in your department's going to have to go cold call the businesses and say, hey, you interested in putting a banner on our screen or in our gymnasium, and you're going to have to do that legwork. So you're a foundation who's willing to do that. My understanding is 100% of the money that comes in comes right back to the athletic program. No one's on the payroll, no one's getting any money. You know, that's my understanding. It's a volunteer board. So I personally like it the way it's designed. I do agree if there are you know, annual needs of the athletic department, that those should be brought forward during budget discussions, because there may be some of those things that we can in fact do. And we're in a better place financially now, and so hopefully that'll continue. But I wouldn't want to lose the relationship that we have with the group, because I think the work that they've done, the stuff that they've helped purchase over the years, it has really helped sort of assist the athletic department with
Yeah.
a number of items that otherwise we would never have the ability to to purchase on our own.
And I would say it's not uniforms. They haven't purchased uniforms. That comes out of our budget, but the coaches have requested,
They used to do the uniforms.
maybe back before me, I don't know.
They used to do them on a regular basis. I know they've done football, they did jerseys.
Yeah, not,
They also did cheerleading one year, which didn't have any uniforms at all. So I know in the past they had done that, and then it went to more big ticket items, like you said.
Yeah.
The batting cage, the outdoor one on the wheels with the netting, put behind home plate for batting practice. I know they purchased one of those one year.
They've done
The
a lot.
netting going down Ellsbury Street, I think,
Oh,
did they
yeah.
assist, I think,
Maybe, yeah.
putting that up from the foul balls.
a lot of stuff in the weight room. The
Weight room.
racks that are like a couple of $1,000s.
The
I mean,
mats for
my
wrestling, I
my
think,
line
they
item
purchased.
in my budget for athletic supplies is $28,000. So, I mean, it's been that way for years. And so, we get through the winter, the fall, and football alone is a big, it takes a lot of money to run football. So, at the end of the fall season, and then I've already done my winter purchases, I've got $10,000 left for the spring. And then you buy baseballs and you try to save things from year to year, so you try to keep it down. I stay within that 28,000. So if somebody, like, coaches request hey, I need a new batting cage, Brad, I need a batting cage. I'm like, all right, well, a batting cage is like $5,000. I don't really, so I could go, the next step would be to go to the revolving account, and I could take it out of the revolving account. But I don't want to deplete that too low, and that's like a rainy day fund kind of thing.
So as far as the sponsorship, I'll just say this, that whomever is responsible for it, I'm okay. I would just ask that there be no changes. So I know we had set some parameters about alcohol, tobacco, those other obviously prohibited. Keeping it the way it is currently, I think, is probably would get my support. As far as the actual, I've seen the actual scoreboard. It's the old we used to have the scorers table, right?
Yeah, that's it.
It's now,
It's a digital scorers
This-
table now.
right. And so, do other schools use that particular one, or does this place have a larger one that can be mounted somewhere?
Oh, yeah, they have that option too. Yeah,
So the one, obviously, it's costs more. I'm just,
Yeah. Some of the things that
I've
are out there
gone to
now,
the games
it's like-
and
yeah.
I've seen this one in operation. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong. But it's also on the floor, depending on where you're sitting.
Right.
You might not have a vantage point for it. The advertisement, if I'm thinking that sideline on the side of it, if I remember correctly, that's probably like 2x3, maybe?
It doesn't say that on ours.
It doesn't say it on
No, we
here,
just
but-
have Durfee, we have.
No, what I'm saying is where the person advertises in the
Oh, yeah,
middle.
right in the middle, yeah.
What size is that approximately?
Uh,
Much smaller than the banners that go up on the rafters.
Yeah, I would say it's, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's that much smaller than the banners. But the banners are up all the time. This is
Right,
just like,
right.
yeah.
Do we know the size of the banners?
I used to.
It says here 24 inches wide by 29 tall on one of the examples. I don't know if that came from them, the third page. The one right after the opening on sideline, it says Friendswood. It says static sign, 24 by 29, I don't know if that's it, or,
I believe these were, the banners were, yeah, and the banners are bigger. It's 8 feet, I think it's 8 feet long, the banners. 4 feet high, 8 feet long.
Yeah, 4x8.
4 by 8.
But the digital piece
Right, it's
on
not-
there is
yeah.
smaller.
Smaller, yeah.
So, again, it's what we have. If you're asking, it'll certainly get advanced tonight, I'm sure, but, if you can have for the full committee, what the projected cost would be for the advertising, I think that's helpful. I think the size of the actual dimensions would be helpful. And, was there
make a
anything
motion
else?
to move forward and then get the more information.
So there's a motion made by Mr. Aguirre to advance to the full committee the discussion on digital advertisement for the athletic department. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Hetzler. Any further
Just
discussion,
one
gentlemen?
comment
Mr.
or
Aguirre?
question. So one of the things I'd like to suggest is maybe getting and I'm sure they have the list, I looked on the website and there was some I'm not disagreeing with any of what you said about all the quality pieces that they purchased, but maybe getting a list of how much they've raised, how much, like Mr. Hetzler's question was valid, how much money is being raised now versus later, and then the issue of the budget. So when you were talking about the budget and you only get so much, how long has it been 28,000?
As long as I can remember. We've
So-
worked within it, that's what I'm saying, we've worked like,
I get it, so
Yeah.
my suggestion to you is, if it's not sufficient, then when you go to get your budget, you need to increase it, or request it to be increased, because if we just say, okay, you can live within it, then we're spending a lot of money. So to Mr. Hetzler's point, we have things that we should be taking care of, so you shouldn't have to skimp so the kids get a JV operation when it should be a varsity operation. I'm not saying you do that, you do the best you can within the parameters, but if you need more money, time now when we're doing the budget is to say, okay, we've had 28,000 and the costs go up, we need to increase that to 50,000, whatever it is, with backup, so that we can support the athletics, the appropriate way. But if we get those other pieces of information, I think getting that to the committee ahead of time might make it go smoother. I yield.
So I just received a return text, so approximately, the foundation's raised approximately 100,000, and they've gifted about 75,000 to the athletic department over the years. And the person asked if we need a breakdown. I'm not gonna text during the meeting back and forth, but
No, but I
we
think
can
it's valid.
ask, we can ask for that, but just so the subcommittee's aware. So it's been about 100,000, they've gifted about 75,000 back to the program. I think Mr. Buston could go back and certainly could find out the breakdown so we can get exactly what items have been purchased over the years, so that we have a sense of what the total will be. But so there was a motion on the table, it was made by Mr. Aguirre, seconded by Mr. Hetzel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Buston.
Thank you.
The next item is the Fall River Youth Soccer Association.
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you for being with us. Nope. Turn it right over to Superintendent.
I'm good. I'd like to listen to the presentation. I can tell you that I was involved initially when we built the school. I was on that building committee for Sylvia, and over the years interacted with different groups, Dean for a while. We know we have issues of I think small proportion, but I think that we can work with the groups that we currently deal with, quite a few youth groups throughout the school system, and this one being the largest that we do deal with.
So I'll just say that I do have some history behind it. Mr. Aguirre was probably on the committee back a number of years back, and there was a proposal made by, is it Mr. Silvera?
Dean Silvario.
He was I think, the president back then. It was him and a couple other individuals from the board. At the time, they were, asking for an extension on the agreement we had for the use of the fields at the Sylvia. In addition to that, they were also making a pitch for approval of the signage that's there now, that hangs just below the school side. And that was done, obviously, as the organization was growing and you were holding tournaments, that it was nice to have it identified as the home of the Fall River Youth Soccer. And so if you're having events or tournaments, that people from the community knew exactly where the home fields were. So I'm familiar with the association. I will say that, over the years, the association's done a great job with, the number of students and kids in general, not just students, because there are other kids who come, maybe go to private schools, charter schools that play youth soccer, but there's always been a great league and run really well by everyone involved. So I'll turn it over. You just introduce both of yourselves, just so that people are here who, I know some may know you, but if you could just introduce yourself, and then I'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
I'm Rachel Zendes. I'm president of Fall River Youth Soccer.
Eddie Almeida, I'm the director of coaching and education for Fall River Youth Soccer.
I guess, like Ken was saying, it's pretty, most of the stuff that we have are pretty simple. I mean, it's nothing like really big deal. The first one we do want to talk about is the, not just on the Fall River soccer level, I'm going to be honest, but on the parent level for Sylvia School, having been there now 13 years between all my children, continuously every year. In the past, there had been parents or somebody who would always keep everything going in a one-way direction. Mrs. Ward always did it that way. We've gone through several principals and that. We had taken that on as Fairview Soccer to keep our traffic down the one-way system that we were constantly using. We continue to use it. However, as a parent with the school department right now, it's not getting used with the new principal, and there's going to be a major issue sooner or later with the way cars are backing into each other trying to get out. Keeping that straight, going one way around thing just works so much better. There had been a brief time that there was a principal in between, I forget her name. She had started using it when she had asked the parents and sent out a survey asking, why was there so much traffic? All of a sudden parents were complaining. And I had sent back, well, you don't have the one-way anymore. And the one-way just rectified everything. So with that being said, it's something that the board has also spoken about, because we do take a one-way sign that we have ourselves that we've made, and we do the one-way so our parents, everything stays in a line, and there's kids are running around everywhere. It's a school, regardless of anything with parents. I mean, kids take off, something happens, there's cars coming in every different direction. We do that, but it was something that we talked about asking you guys if that was something that you would consider doing, is putting a one-way into that parking lot.
A sign, right, permanent sign.
A permanent signage that the one-way was being used, because it's not just advantage to us.
It's not there right now.
No, so when you go into the school and you get to the very end, you can go left to go into
So
the front of
then
the
you
school,
have-
In
right?
front of the school.
No, we're talking if you go right to go to the fields.
Yep.
We put a one-way sign at the very end of that
Right
kind
at that like corner right
at
there.
that
Okay.
circle.
Otherwise, we have parents right
Where
now.
would that take you?
So the road, you would go right into the parking lot and
Into
then you
around
go
the
around.
And it loops you
past
right
the
around
circle,
and
the
out,
block.
so nobody ever crosses over each other.
I get it.
Right now, what
'Cause we were
parents do
getting
is they
people
go this
going, yeah,
way,
forward and back
some are
and that.
going this way, then these are backing out this way, so everybody ends up gridlocked, and it literally takes an additional 10 minutes.
So you go up the main road, right into the lot, all the
Yep.
way to the end where the fields
You
are.
always are bearing,
Right.
Take a
there.
left, another left, back out to, and then
correct,
down
you
the
come out
road.
and nobody crosses each other, because
I
the
see.
buses are
Right.
going one way, the buses they've already set aside and put there, and the children already come, and then the front is clear all the
Yeah.
time for the people to come through. With that one way, nobody has to cross on top of each other, ever.
I mean, it's something that certainly, can have Mr. Pacheco take a
Sure,
look at.
absolutely.
You can bring back to the committee, his recommendation in terms of what that would look like. I mean, I don't know that you necessarily need to study it, but I guess my only concern would be when there's less traffic, does that person still need to go all the way around the schoolyard to get to the front
I
of the school?
mean, even if you just,
But-
an hour's on it, like they do,
Yeah.
at the
Between
front
the
of
hours
Durfee
or
for the
whatever,
Dunkin' Donuts, it
one
says,
way between these hours and-
right turn only, from
Between
7 to
zero.
8,
I'd say
Makes
most
sense.
of the soccer parents by this point.
Yeah, most of us, they know now, because I'm like, no.
Right,
Really,
because they're used to it, right? And the kids even know, it's safe that they can come out and walk one way versus.
For
not really.
congestion
Yeah,
purposes and
exactly.
safety,
Just keeps it moving.
knowing which direction traffic is going.
Yeah. So that was one minor thing. The other one was back years ago, you can still see the brief, line of it, was 2 handicap spots. Parking spots down towards the fields, and we do have an increase in, parents, grandparents, or even players with our TOPS program who have handicap
It's just like
lanes.
weathered away.
It's
Yeah,
just
it's
weathered
not-
away through
can't
the
see
years,
it.
so it's not there anymore. They have the clearance for it for the vans.
And there's signage,
No,
The
but-
sign in
because
front
actually,
is
I
no
think
longer
legally,
there.
the sign has to
Sign
be
is the
there.
only legal part.
Right.
The rest is,
You could paint whatever you
Sure.
want on the ground, but
The
if it
sign's
doesn't
gone.
have.
Yeah,
the
there's
So we
It's
can
sign-
out
put
for a
signage.
while.
Okay.
So if we could just get those back up, that
You're
would be
talking about the
great.
ones on the field.
Right,
The-
right, in
Right
that
at
corner,
the
yeah.
field, yes.
But-
I've tried to paint, but it's not.
Yeah, and even that, like I was saying, unless it's on a post with a sign,
Mm-hmm.
you can paint what you want on the ground. If it doesn't have a sign and you park there, someone will give you a dirty look. You
Right.
probably shouldn't park there
Right,
anyway.
exactly.
course.
But
I
in
just
terms
wouldn't be
for
able-
enforcement purposes, for enforcement
Makes
purposes.
sense, yeah.
Right.
There's
we're
no-
gonna do it
there's
less
definitely no
of the time.
sign there.
But I think we can talk with the traffic department, with Ms. Ferrara.
If it's- is it
They may have
Tuesday?
access
I
to
think there's
signage
2
or
because the
whatever.
van
If
thing
not-
is,
Yeah, in between.
has the sign, there's
Yeah.
slides in between. Well, I guess, want to talk about the fields themselves
Yeah,
right now? Because I
absolutely.
know you're,
So I've been on the board for 10 years, and we've always had an agreement with the the school department that they cut and water, and we would fertilize, seed, aerate, basically everything else.
And line?
And line. Yeah, we do all the line. I actually do a lot of the lining myself.
You don't want to see my lines.
So we've done that for a number of years. We got to a point where actually the grass was looking really good. It was thick. It was safe. We got most of the rocks out of there, and then part of the sprinkler system broke, and we had a pretty dry summer and lost all the grass. So all that's left there was literally just weeds, crab grass. So we're trying to regrow. After speaking to, and I apologize, I forget a gentleman's name, but one of the maintenance folks, he indicated that the sprinkler systems were working, but we don't know what the cadence is, right? How often they're being watered. We've tried several times throughout the year with another member of the board to try to get out there and just to see, hey, when they come on, when they go off, that kind of thing.
And they had been turned on for a brief time, but however, the time that they were coming on was the exact time that the field was being used on a Saturday morning. So while the
Yeah,
game
with
was
hundreds of
going
kids,
on,
you sprinklers that went
there was
off.
just sprinklers going off everywhere.
So we had a landscaper go out to the
Right.
field to just,
Right.
yeah, that was.
That's why I got the greenest grass in my neighborhood.
Early morning,
Yes,
late
I
night.
say
Yeah.
I'm
Morning,
a
late
1
at
o'clock in the
night.
morning on mine, so.
Yeah, I'm out there with the sprinkler myself. But we, I had a sprinkler, I had a landscaper go out just to test the field, see what it needs, and it's thousands of dollars in repairs right now because we're starting from scratch. So we were trying to see if we can get access to full service, us paying basically for the full servicing of maintaining those fields. So cutting, watering.
What would that mean?
Well, that's the question. So right now you cut, right? And
Right.
you water in some schedule. I don't know what the schedule is, so just to be honest with you. I know we've requested over the time of my board access to the water and maybe a different panel so that we paid for the water, but
Yeah.
that was turned down. Again, this is going back a number of years. But the landscaper basically said, hey, listen, we could do all the work, you could spend thousands of dollars in doing all of this, but if you don't have access to the water or the grass is being cut way too short, you'd be back at square one. And we don't want to.
Fertilizing the weeds right now, this is
Yeah.
not.
How many fields is it? Actual playing fields? 2?
It's 2 fields and
Two
then we have.
full fields.
We have 1 full field, 11v11, and then
Yeah.
we have 2 smaller, one 9v9 field and one 7v7 field. So it's
Okay.
about 4.5 acres, I
Yeah.
think, in total.
Yes.
And there is a,
And we can't really rotate anything, so
no,
we're
I know,
stuck,
that's the
you
problem
know?
with grass.
So you're stuck, and you get a lot of wear, right? You get a lot
Right,
of
so,
wear.
I mean, big picture, would be another great place for a turf field at some point for the city. You know, because it's the
I
only.
think we've thought about extending, but it's wetlands.
Yeah,
so
we
you
can't go back,
touch- You
right.
can't touch that, right?
But
Yeah, that's
is,
watershed.
Ken,
Yeah.
there's an actual storage trailer there too, right, where the equipment's kept?
We have,
They have
we have,
storage
we have
areas.
two, both storage
There,
areas
we
are
have
ours.
nothing, no.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of issues that the board would have to deal with. So it's union work to maintain the fields. So that's the first piece that we would have to deal with. It's all done on straight time, so it's not a situation where we're going to be denying anybody an overtime situation, but it is work that has been done by our collective bargaining group. That's the first piece. The second piece is I don't believe that there's any issue with the watering, even if we had to put a panel outside for just the electrical end, so that you'd have control over that and you wouldn't have to wait for someone on the inside to set it, and you could have all your equipment outside in an area you could get at. That's an easy enough fix on our side to take care of. I don't think that's a big deal at all. So 2 separate pieces. The one piece, I'm not sure how we would go about that, and again, that group that does that work, the 3 groundskeepers that does that work, takes care of 5 buildings, all of Durfee, Sylvia, Fonseca, and Henry Lord, which is the other large site, acres. So that would be something we would have to discuss. But I think the watering piece is an easy one for the district to take care of, where they would have access to that whenever they need it.
And when you say thousands of dollars, are you talking about essentially stripping and putting down all new seed and leveling?
It's so compact right now, I can't even get a flag in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, in front of the goals, it's like hard, like rock.
It's like rocks. It's
Now the kids are like, oh my God, it hurts so much. And we
So you can rotate the
And we've-
two smaller fields, like we've gone this way versus this way.
Right, like we've started doing
yeah.
the smaller games to spin them all.
We didn't use the 11v11 field this whole past spring to
Spring.
hope it will just grow, but we didn't have any luck with anything there.
All right.
Mr. Agia?
So the, I think is the request that you guys are gonna pay for this?
Yes.
I think that's really good. I mean, you guys have been doing it, I mean, just to do the fertilizer and everything is thousands of dollars. So we know that you guys have done that for a number of years. I know firsthand that what Mr. Pacheco talked about, that thing being inside, is a pain in the neck because you can't get, even when people are trying to help custodian,
Right, not
just,
sure how to
they're
do
not there. We're there at night, other people have been there, and it's like, it's on. No, it's not. I'm standing on the field, the water's not on.
Right.
So things like that. So I think connecting that outside would be, like doing that ASAP or whatever before the spring would come. And I think that any organization that is willing to take on those kind of repairs and that kind of work, knowing full well that the field is the school department's field, and if the kids need it for the school, that comes first, like all that, whatever the agreement says, I don't have it here in front of me, but I think that should be articulated. But I, for one, am in favor of, if you want to be able to do it, working with Mr. Pacheco to say, you can't go in there and do things that are not right,
Right, of course.
you know, but right now it's a mess anyway. So how much damage could you do to it, you know? But I think working with a professional organization, whatever you got to do, I would be in favor of it. So we'll let everybody speak on it, but I'd be prepared to make a motion to forward that request to the full committee, so.
So, I'm clear, you're looking for the school committee to give you the authority to go ahead and repair those fields?
On our course.
They're gonna take over the maintenance of the fields.
And what's that?
They would want to take over the maintenance of the fields.
So,
Well, I guess the maintenance
I mean,
part that
that's
that
the
the
only thing we're not
school
cutting.
was doing was cutting.
right, so I think
So-
that's probably, as Mr. Pacheco's mentioned, an issue that we may have to have
Bargain.
conversations with.
Right.
Bargain, we probably have to bargain that stuff, or maybe even collective bargain, I don't know. But, you know, you mentioned, you know, it gets cut too short. Well, you know, when your staff's trying to cover the I personally have cut my lawn shorter at times because I know certain
You don't wanna
times
do it
of the
second
year,
time.
Right, of course.
I'll be out there again in
Understand.
3 days cutting it again, so, and I'm not saying that's why it was cut short, but, you know, if you got other jobs you gotta run to, you gotta keep up with the grass in the spring when you cut it, go cut the other one, you gotta come back the next day to cut
And this is what we had
this
said,
one.
and we agreed on that too, that we
But
said.
I agree.
that,
I mean, it-
Right.
You know,
when you
crunch for
got
time.
when you got crabgrass, like one of the guys that was out there, he's like, I've been cutting this for 28 years. He's like, I'm gonna skip a week because it's crabgrass. It grows this way, right? So I don't need to cut it back. But you know that is something that they could raise the deck, right?
Right.
But to your point, you might have to. If the grass is great and green and lush, it's gonna take more cutting.
Right, right. So I think that I guess on a, you know, on the issue of wanting to, you know, help, I think you're hearing, we're willing to help. You guys have done your part. To the extent we can do ours, I think, you know, the partnership's been good over the years. Can't see why that needs to change. We are up against a few things because, you know, it is a maintenance issue, and so we have to clear that piece. But I think, you know, Mr. Aguirre's motion in a few minutes, I think, is a good one. You know, I don't know if Mr. Pacheco will have the answers for the committee at that point, but anytime an organization is willing to partner with us and provide the services that you do, I think it's certainly a good thing. Were there other,
The
items
lease
or-
is up for renewal.
what's that?
Our lease is up for renewal.
So the last one was what, a 10-year or a 5-year? We did a 5, I
I
think.
thought they were all threes.
Threes.
We did a one, oh, you weren't here. You weren't here either. In my mind,
The last time I did
Had to be
we did it
longer
was
than
at
three.
Durfee, actually.
That's
Longer
the
than
first
three.
one,
Longer
the
than
first,
three.
I thought the
Usually
first
a
one
longer
was
than three,
10.
right?
Yeah.
first one was
Yeah.
10, and I think when they came back
Which would have been
years ago when I was
2014.
there, because I remember the meeting being held at the administrative building, I remember the conversation we had. I want to say they proposed a 10, and I think we said we weren't willing to go 10, we did 5, I think. I thought. I could be wrong.
which was in 2014.
Yeah, the one meeting I went to was at Durfee, at the auditorium in Durfee.
That was the one before that.
And I think that was 3. That was the last, since I've been on the board, that's the only one I've been to.
It's expired now, or is it going to expire in 20?
I was told, I'm sorry, I
okay.
inherited this
No, that's
position
okay.
last October. I was told that it was a 3-year, they believed, so that's why I immediately wanted to get on the
We
list,
can-
because I didn't want to show up in
Yeah,
the field.
Yeah,
we need to know
we'll
where
find
we're
out.
at.
We can find that out, but I think it was.
I think the
they
first one
wanted
was
to do
10, and
another 10.
if it was 3, it would have been 2 3s. So has it only been renewed once, that you know of?
Since I've been here.
Well, then it would have been a 5, because that would have been 19.
I remember Dean coming with, I think,
2014,
two other gentlemen.
right.
Yeah.
Were at
So
that
that would be
building
due for
when we
2020,
met.
which
Right.
would be
I
in
thought he
January.
wanted 10. They explained how much you've invested in the
Mhm.
fields over the years with your piece of it, and we talked, but I think there was a reluctance to locking up
I think it's a 10
that
to 5.
field for 10. I think we did 5, but
Right.
I could be wrong. But we could always get that. It's irrelevant. But
Yep.
when is it, so it expires
It would be
Probably
January
January
10,
1.
2020.
January. And what is it that the association would
Just to renew.
just to renew for whatever it was before?
I'll make
Unless
a
you
motion
have
that
any
we
issues.
give a positive recommendation to the maintenance issue of the fields with Fall River Soccer, as well as the agreement, or lease agreement, whatever it is, to be presented at the next school committee meeting.
So, just so let's take them separate. Okay?
Sure.
The first one, let's take, is the referral, positive referral to the full committee for renewed lease or agreement with Fall Youth Soccer for whatever the term was prior. So if it was a 5-year, another
Yeah, and if it was a 3-year and we wanted to give them 5, we can do it
Correct.
at the full
We
committee.
could do that, the full committee is correct, but at least they'll get it from here to the full committee. Mr. Agia made that motion. I'll second the motion. Any further discussion on that motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
And the next one, Mr. Agia, the only, so I would ask that a motion be made to refer to the full committee for additional information and further discussion, the upkeep and maintenance of that field. That will, I think if we do it with a favorable recommendation, that the association will be able to maintain that field without having that conversation with the people who are now contractually responsible for maintaining it. So just
Yeah, I think
different
either
wording,
way
but
it's-
it'll give Mr. Pacheco a chance to talk with them, be able to provide the full committee his conversation. If he needs to, provide additional information, he can, but it'll still get it there. So if he comes back with the information, we're ready to roll, we can take some
Yeah,
action.
I mean, that's fine. My intention is that,
Right.
I personally don't think it's an issue with collective bargaining. They're already seeding it, they're already doing everything. So in essence, all we're doing is allowing them to seed it, and that they could quite frankly seed it, and we wouldn't know the way that it's currently listed. But my intention is just to get it there to support them, so subject to collective bargaining or other discussions is fine, but I do think it's something that we should look at.
So Mr. Aguirre's motion would be to refer the upkeep maintenance to the full committee contingent upon Mr. Pacheco's discussions with the appropriate union personnel.
If I could, Mr. Costa, just before you take the vote, so we are looking for, with the exception of the water piece being taken care of, we are looking for the school department to walk away from the field.
Not owning it.
Not only, no.
Not the ownership,
No.
but we are looking for no grass cutting, no fertilizer, nothing other than providing the water and providing the mechanism, the operating controls for the sprinkler system. That would be the only thing we'd be supplying, so we wouldn't be walking on that field to do anything.
Right,
Right.
and our board also stated that with the mechanism that you need to put the electrical,
Yep.
if you wanted to set, if you want it at our cost, we will do a meter for the electrical, because we would like to have some electrical over there, right? Because right now we have nothing. So that would be fine if that was over
So
there.
it'd be needed.
And we would have our
bill to
own bill that would come from the league.
separate meter. Okay.
But there's no lights, right? This is not lighting,
No.
this is
No, I think
strictly,
this was probably
No,
just
just-
for concessions.
Just-
You know,
something that you
whatever-
could plug
yeah,
something
we can
into.
plug in things when we need to
okay.
plug in.
that's
Hot
something
chocolate.
we'll talk- we'll use it. We'll bring the
Coffee
power
would
out
be
to it.
nice.
Probably small.
And the only reason I bring that up is because, as a former park board commissioner, we interact with a lot of leagues, and everyone has good intentions. And then before you know it, we're getting a phone call after 3 days of rain that they can't cut the field because the grass is too high, and we bring in the equipment and do it. So this has to be a,
Well,
You know what I'm saying? So
all
that's
right,
my concern
let
is
me
that-
ask you this. Would your association be amenable to, in those circumstances where the school department was called in to do that, that whatever time for personnel we had to bill for maintenance guy to go cut it in an emergency or whatever, that would be reimbursed?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean,
Would that cover
again,
it?
and I think
Yeah.
If
like,
you had to hire a maintenance guy to go out in a jam because for whatever reason they couldn't cut it and they asked for it to be cut and they were up against it and you had to come in, would that suffice or no?
I'm just thinking that's gonna be, I think that's gonna be a conversation that's gonna come up in collective bargaining. Once we wash our hands of this, you're not gonna tell me I gotta go cut that next Saturday.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
well, I could always
You know what I'm
submit the
saying? So that's
contract
what
that
I'm
we
saying.
have with whatever, whoever we use after we get our bids, showing
So
the
you're
contract
gonna,
that
right,
will
okay.
be.
But
I mean,
you're
that
gonna
can
have
be in a-
a real landscaping company.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we're not doing this
So one that
ourselves.
maintains
And we have the
schools.
the funding to do it. We've
Right.
done a lot of fundraising lately, and we have grants, so.
And that can be articulated in the new lease agreement
Correct.
that says you're not going to do it like with just friends. That
Right,
you're gonna
no.
have a company,
Right,
he
right,
can
no,
have
no,
some
no.
specs
We don't
for
have enough time.
whoever to do, so
Yeah,
that
yeah, licensed and
that can be
insured, exactly.
incorporated in
Exactly.
Exactly.
to the
And
whole.
the same thing, the one thing that he did point out from a fertilizer perspective is that I know that there's certain fertilizers that you can put on school grounds that you can't, right?
Right.
And so that's
So all
something
that
that he
stuff
would
would
work
have to
through.
be
Plus the watershed.
Yes,
Yeah,
he said that he would
exactly.
be submitting all that to you individually with his licensors and licensures
Subject
and
to
everything.
approval.
Right.
Because it is,
And make
because
sure
of
that the kids are
watershed
not
up
walking
there.
on there, yeah, exactly.
Because with kids,
Yeah.
there's certain things you probably could put down.
Correct.
Motion was made, that was seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Is there anything else? So I think, I would say this about the traffic one-way sign and the handicap spots. I'm not certain it needs.
We're not
I
gonna
mean,
come back to the committee.
No, I
We'll
think
just let you know what we do.
I was saying, Mr. Pacheco's aware of it, it's something that would fall into his purview, it doesn't need our approval. The other item, obviously, because it requires some further discussion, would have to go, but in terms of just the, those individual things, I think that's something that Mr. Pacheco can handle within his department.
Excellent.
The only thing I want to add on the handicap spots is I don't know how during the school day if there's a lot of, is that parking lot totally full? You
Yes.
know, for staff, I mean, so that you had mentioned that there's a lot of people or more people that are going on the, so is the 2 spaces sufficient or do you need another one? If we're going to put signs up and we're going to do the work, I don't know if we should add 1 to make 3.
By the fields, I'd say we're averaging, our program generally is about 600, 700, 800 kids
Yeah.
on a Saturday. With all your aunts, uncles, vavos, I'd say a minimum of 2.
Is there a requirement for
There
will
the
be.
number of
We'll
spots?
just-
You
we'll
gotta
just
have
do,
so many per
Yeah,
spot?
I don't know
Take
what
a
the
look.
code
Yeah,
is
we'll
right
I
now.
don't, yeah, I mean, we've always only had 2, and then we have cones that we've set up with, if I see someone come with a handicap, I just move a cone and I just have a
Right.
parking
Yeah.
flag.
Like,
Not
well,
handicapped.
if you
Yeah,
look at where our
exactly,
2
yeah.
storage units are too,
Right.
we have those 2 spots right there. We moved our porta potties off
To
of
one
there
of the
because
spots.
it's a muddy disaster all the time in a handicap. So we put them right here because that's only a half a spot
Okay.
there and they fit perfectly, the handicap and a regular one. It would be enough room over there for you to do that with a clearance
Okay.
for the van if you had to, and that would work okay. Especially with having it on a hard surface, the porta potties and stuff now works
So if we
way
can
better.
do this, if you can give the contact person, someone can go out there with Mr. Pacheco one afternoon or whatever, just,
Yep.
and then he can visualize it with the
Sure.
input from you folks.
No problem.
Anything
Thank you.
further? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, have a good night.
You too. Last item is transportation. Turn it over to Mr.
The
Pacheco.
usage of educational facilities.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Thank you. We'll step back. Usage of educational facilities. Somehow I had checked that one off and hadn't even discussed it yet.
Yeah, basically strictly discussion in preparation of the completion of Durkee. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for us, different opportunities for us as far as rentals of that building and also the exterior of that building with the playing fields. So what I wanted to do was to to eliminate some of the items here. We've got some items here that are rented by capacity. Some of the community rooms, it's not necessary, it doesn't really suit what we're trying to do. We're paying for custodial coverage and we're paying for security. Those are set items, depending on the size, really doesn't matter. So I'd like to take that out. On that particular item, the fields at Durfee are on a separate list, but we would also like to upgrade some of those numbers. So what I'd like to do is come back to you, whether it be here if that's where you want it to come, or if you wanted it to go to full committee, but with an updated menu of what we have here, but also we will bring you some comparisons from other districts as to what they're doing with their facilities. These have been around for quite some time, but there are some that are applicable. There are some that are not anymore.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion requesting Mr. Pacheco to do that due diligence and come back at the next facilities meeting quarterly.
Second.
Maybe
Yeah, I don't
in
know.
the spring.
I mean, you can make it in form of a motion, I'm not sure when's necessary, we'll just bring it back to a later date, but motion's been made to have Mr. Pacheco revise the current Borough Public Schools uses facilities charges. Seconded by Mr. Hatson. Any further discussion? I would just, Mr. Pacheco.
Yes.
Well, let me dispose of this first, but it's on this topic. Roll call?
Ms. Dragia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Can I just say, I know we had talked about it at a previous facilities and operations subcommittee. I believe Mr. Buston, I should ask him, he was here, but it wasn't the topic he was here to talk on, but there was some, and I was on the field on Thanksgiving, and all the talk about the field, being worn and having, sort of at its shelf life, if you will, over almost 10 years now. Obviously, we're gonna need that field, and we're gonna need it for at least another 2 years probably, right?
Yes.
I had proposed, and I thought that we were gonna scale back on the number of rentals we did on that field to preserve it for the high school athletic program so that we could get through another 2 years so we can determine what we're gonna do with it. Has there been any further discussion on that?
So there are some groups that we don't rent to anymore on that field. We do have a couple that we do. We do rent to the Southland, but we don't have. There are a couple of private leagues, AAU kind
I'm
of
just
leagues that
thinking
we do.
long term. I hate to see us in a year have something happen to that rug where now even our own high school athletes
I
can't
agree.
use it because rather than scaling back the usage and giving it a little bit of a rest for a couple of years, we go full bore with the number of people wanting to use it, and then we're a year out of making a decision on what to do with it, and now we can't even use it for field hockey, we can't use it for soccer, we can't use it for football because it's become unsafe or unplayable. So I would just ask, as one member, if you could, when you're bringing that back, have someone take a look at that and give us a number of how many leagues are using it, how long they're using it for, if their seasons are, a short season or if they're a long season. So, because I think we're going to have to make some decisions about that field soon, and I'd rather do that sooner rather than later. Because again, I was walking on it, you can actually feel like the
Waves.
yeah, and so I don't know if that's something that we can look into, if there's a machinery that we can rent to sort of like fluff it so that the rubber and stuff goes, or if that's.
Unfortunately, it's beyond the rubber, so it's
Oh,
under
so
the
it's-
rubber now. But you're absolutely right. There is, so the usage, the fields are designed 8 to 10 years, nonstop usage, more or less. Not 24 hours a day, but nonstop usage, as long as it's groomed.
Seasons, right?
As long as it's groomed, and the infill is replaced every once in a while, which you're doing as you're grooming it, then the fields will last that life expectancy. However, that field has got a lot of use, and its life expectancy is real close right now.
So my only concern with that is, so we use it a lot, other leagues are using it, or charging based on not necessarily the maintenance of that field, but more for like security, right? And maybe
So there is a fee, but the other two pieces are security and
Right.
custodial, right?
So are fees too low? Shouldn't the cost of replacing that field kind of be divided out based on how much we use it and how much other programs use it? And then that cost tacked on to these numbers? So
So-
that way it kind of builds itself up, so that way, you know, if we do have to make a repair, we have some money on hand going towards it. I mean, shouldn't that be rolled out? Like if it's an 8-year field, divide the cost, you know what I'm getting at?
Right.
I think
Yeah,
I heard
I-
you talking about that last time we talked.
Right, and it's just think, you know, looking at whether or not that would then be cost prohibitive for some of these leagues to pay that. Because it could be. I mean, my understanding is it's about $1 million to replace, about $1 million to replace it. And our use of schools account now annually is about 100,000, right? Give or
We're
take.
close to 2 now,
Oh, so it's even
close
grown,
to
so
two.
so that's great, but still,
but just,
that'd be one investment over
Right.
10 years to replace that rug, so we couldn't use any of that money for 8 years, and then we'd have to dump every penny that we used from all of our use of schools into replacing that field. So I agree, I think we should look at the balance between how often we're using it, how often they're using it, and see if there's, you know, because I'm sure they want a safe playing field for their athletes too, whoever's using it.
Right.
And so the way to do that is to make sure that there's enough compensation to repair it and groom it, or whatever needs to be done to it.
Is it totally, Saturday night, is it totally secure, or can you get in and work out if you're just going to work out?
Years ago, well, so originally it was totally secured, and then we went through a time period where I believe had security up there in the afternoons and opening up the track for people to walk for a while. Then I think it got shut down again. So it's been a little bit of both over the 10 years that I know it to be.
It's a short fence though, right? It's not
I
like,
mean, you can, if a bunch of people want to jump the fence and go play, they can go play. That, there's no doubt about that.
and that happens a lot.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that kind of use there too. I mean, every time I'm
Yeah.
out there, I see folks training
Right.
that don't, you know, belong with
Yeah,
us.
so, yeah, we might have to adjust that with some weekend security.
Yeah, or,
Bring that
I don't know,
closer
maybe
back.
part of the high school design is with more fence at some point.
So the building's gonna surround half of it, and then the other half will have to secure with an 8-foot fence, 6-foot to 8-foot fence to lock in that other side, once the
mean-
construction's over.
I mean, you look at even Somerset, drive by Somerset's brand new field, and you drive by and there are people walking the track. In the summertime till, 7:30, 8 o'clock till dusk. And we weren't allowing that for a long time, and, people from the community said, hey, it's a public high school, it's, taxpayer funded, and you sort of locking
Right.
us out of it. So we did a schedule where we had some security up there, opened up the gates and let people do, their exercising for a few hours in the afternoon. But I don't know, there was a reason why that changed, I can't remember what it was, but if I only raise that as an issue because, again, we're 2 years out, and I hate to see a year into it, our athletes not be able to use it because we're a year away from making a decision on what we're gonna do on it, so. Last
I
thing
will
was,
look into it,
anything
yep.
further on the,
You said it costs $1 million, is that a?
It's about $1 million. It's
It's $1 million when you have everything already in
Already in
place,
place.
which we do.
Yeah.
So all it is basically coming in, taking it off, grooming it, and then reattaching a new one. And the new turf is totally different than the old turf. But everything's in place, so it's $1 million just
And
for
is
the
it-
rug.
Over the years, like, is the quality now, is it
It's
a
different.
15-year life instead of 10? Like what?
I don't think
new
I don't
stuff?
think it's more than 10, but I think the difference with the field is that it
Yeah.
wears,
Differently.
it wears better than this field wears. That's
Right.
the issue.
You have less
and
of
the
the-
attachments are different. The
Yeah.
quality of the infield. Now there's a lot of different infill mixes.
Even just
that
the
you
way
didn't
they
have before.
attach the seams
Right.
are different now and that is always a big issue, is where the seams come apart.
Yeah.
And so, for the D in Durfee, the DU, maybe there's a seam that runs through and you say, why is that letter flapping? But now they're essentially doing, all the different colors aren't seams anymore. They're actually printed on it.
Itself, right?
And so it's one big piece of fabric, essentially. But 1 million, so if we do the baseball field down the road, we're talking about that too. That would be a whole different design, because you have to get all the concrete poured, all the rebar installed, all that stuff, cushion underneath to be able to then put the rug on top.
Yeah. The only reason why I say it is I think we should do, while we have the time, a cost-benefit analysis on how much we're charging and how much is in the revolving account. And at some point, we need to take, like, we're gonna have more money, but let's say there was 200,000. If that field makes $100,000 a year, then that would cover the loan for the $1 million to repair it and get a new one. So it's like the people are paying, you know, you get a top quality thing, you're gonna pay. If we get 15 years out of it, it might be less, but I think that's something that long-term planning to say, we need to replace it. Are we doing the, whatever they call those rubber things, you know, are we doing the maintenance when the field was first purchased? Are we doing all of the maintenance that we were supposed to do?
We can't do any more maintenance and rolling that field to get it any better than it currently is.
Correct, that's not what the question was.
But I remember
Yeah.
back.
My question
I know what you're
was,
saying.
since the start
Did
of,
we?
when we
Yeah.
built that field, it was told point blank that you needed to every single, they laid it right out,
There was a
and you had the
cover that needed
machine
to go on,
that
there was
would
a
like
machine
take
that
the,
had to
suck them
ice
all
it
up
to
the
get the
rubber
snow off
pellets,
it.
Yeah.
disperse them even, like, have we over the years done
I can-
that with
I can-
Fidelity?
I can only tell you what
Yeah.
I've seen done now.
I-
And what we've done now is what we should be doing. I don't know how far back that went, and I don't know what.
Now we
I-
might be like picking up after it's already a mess.
I think we recently purchased some of that equipment to allow for that maintenance, but that was after several years of, if you remember that project when it kicked off, was a lot more grand than originally
Came out.
came
Yeah.
out. It was done in phases, so if you remember, we didn't even have bathrooms up there, that was gonna be phase 2. We didn't have some of the speakers electric for the field, that was gonna be phase 2 because of the cost. So I don't think we purchased early on the equipment to do what we needed to right off the bat. We did that some years later, but I agree with you. If we're gonna make that investment and the committee's gonna say, okay, we're gonna put a new carpet out there in 2 years when a new school opens, then we have to have a plan for how we maintain that, so we're not having that conversation again in another 8 years or 10 years.
And secure it, like you guys said.
Right.
Sometimes that's a hard vote to take, whether you say, can the community use it? I remember not being on the committee at that time, but watching it.
Yeah.
And the pressure was on the committee to say, oh, it's the community paying, everybody's go, oh, we gotta open it, but then it's gonna be a mess.
Right.
So, same
Well,
thing
I
on the
think
pop
that's what
boards
I-
and stuff, so
I think that's
we
what
might
I
have to, if we say we're gonna spend the money to, we have to have a better plan of securing it, and maybe have it only open certain times when it's controlled. You know, we shouldn't just open it up and say, let's spend $1 million and like
I
hope for
remember
the
when it
best.
was first opened up, you couldn't have sports drinks on it, it was just water. Now you go up there, you got Dunkin', you got sports drinks, you got everything going on up there, because if you spill something, the sugar, it's gonna cause mold. Well, all these different things, when they laid it out there, we're like, what can you do on a thing? And then I'm thinking, they got them in all these athletic fields, professionals are out there running around. But, you know, they had the maintenance funds to clean
Yeah.
up clean it up after, where I think we were trying to be preventative, but, good point, and if you can, take a look at that.
The only other thing I would add is that, and going back to the previous conversation with Mr. Buston, if we have 3 athletic fields that are artificial turf, or 4 athletic fields at the end of this possibly with artificial turf, then maybe that school use fund could be augmented with the advertising, and stuff that the athletic department needs could be asked for in the budget. And, you know, you could come up with a steady stream, and now you're putting scoreboards or whatever on 4 fields or 5 fields, and generating the same money with electronic scoreboards as opposed to banners and things like that, so.
Right.
The
Maybe it's-
multi-purpose field is turf.
No,
It's
not
not.
yet. No.
All right.
The
Yeah.
hope is yes.
No, in the new design.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we got the one in the back, that
Right.
probably is as
That
old
one.
as this one.
And
It
that
is.
one's
They're both the same
hurting-
age.
That one's hurting probably as much as, a little more.
Because we practice it now.
Got a lot more use.
But you're driving sleds and all that
Yeah,
crap.
so the next, well, last agenda item is transportation.
So I included the IFB from the 1-year contract offer in the package. I know during all of the meetings we had with transportation, the fact that special education busing does not have to be procured the same way as everything else was coming up over and over again. And in this particular proposal, everything is built in here, it's all 30B. We can remove a couple of items in the bidding process that wouldn't have to be. What I'm asking for is an opportunity to approach the two current companies who have the two contracts for special education. Now, one of them, and McKinney-Vento is included, that would have to be removed. But I would like to have an opportunity to negotiate with those two companies for a number on a 5-year package before we go out to an IFB again, which I need to do probably in the month of February. So the current package that is vans also includes McKinney-Vento, and the other special ed is strictly yellow bus special ed. So the two separate companies have two separate contracts. What would have to be removed from this discussion would be the McKinney-Vento, which would have to be as a bid on its own for that particular service, because that's not exempt from that bidding process.
So you're asking this
So-
committee to forward a recommendation to the full committee?
To allow me
you
to negotiate, because since I can't negotiate until we pick a contractor, until we have a signed contractor after the process. And within that 25% of the cost of the contract negotiation. This is the only time I would have an opportunity to negotiate if we don't do the 30B process. So I think there's an opportunity, since we've seen one particular contract go $800, I wish it was $800, $800,000 over what we budgeted, what we had in place for a 5-year contract. It would be an opportunity to see if we can get closer to the number we had instead of the one we ended up with. And I don't think we can do that doing it out the same way. So there's no harm, no foul, because if the numbers don't come back worthy of not doing it that way, then we would put it out as an IFB again. And what it's going to do is it's going to give us another category on the bidding process. So we would have special ed, regular ed, and McKinney-Vento, 3 separate pieces that would go out. The McKinney-Vento piece would be a mix.
Advantageous for some companies who maybe don't have the fleet to do all of it, to say,
Exactly.
I can do McKinney-Vento, maybe that's something that.
The McKinney-Vento piece would be a smaller
That's what I'm
piece.
saying, someone may, a
sitting by
smaller
itself.
company may say, I can't do that bigger piece, but that's something I could handle, so maybe breaking it out actually helps, the process. Any discussion? Snagit?
So I'm not opposed to the van piece personally, because I think we already voted for the 5-year contract at the lower rate, so I wouldn't have a problem supporting doing that with that company.
Yep.
The other bids, I think that we had given public notice, and I suggested that we work with the vendors last time. I suggested that we want to make it fair to everybody. We said, no, we're going to do 1 year and we're going to go out to bid, and we gave that word, our word, to the public. So I don't feel comfortable going back on that word for the other piece, for the special ed. Splitting them up, so be it, whatever, but I just don't feel comfortable with, after we went through what we went through, and companies bid and didn't bid, but they were all told that we were doing 1 year. If you recall, I suggested
Yep.
that we do 1 year with an option for the second, and we chose not to. So all of those options that I think were laid out were all denied. And I don't think it's fair to come back now, not saying you're trying to do that, I think
No,
you're
no.
trying to do the right thing and trying to save money along the way, but I think being fair to the vendors that were told it's a 1-year contract and then there's gonna be another bid, we shouldn't change that at the present time. So if we do pass this, I'd ask that we take separate motions so that I could be in favor of the van piece. I think that's the biggest piece of this, but the other one I will not support. I yield.
So the van one is gonna come back automatically less, just because we're pulling McKinney-Vento out of that piece. So that would be another section in the 30B column. So what you're saying is just the vans for special ed is okay.
Personally, I mean,
Right,
the
right, no,
committee
I
will
know,
pick
I'm
their own,
saying, but that's
what I'm
the-
comfortable supporting is what, in essence, what Tremblay bid on. And they, by going 5 years to one, it cost this city $700,000 or more dollars, which is crazy. And it was crazy to do then, it's crazy to, now. So I don't think it's, as I said before, I thought that was a good price. And there's not many people that have that many vans to do that job.
That contract should have been signed.
So,
It got the vote of this committee, it went down to City Hall, it sat in purchasing, never got signed, and then we had found out through a meeting that we had, it wasn't signed. I still, and I'll talk with Attorney Assad, follow up with him, but I had asked, got the vote of the committee for a legal opinion on what the authority was of the mayor to decide not to sign a contract that's voted on by a majority of the school committee. And so I'll find out what his feeling is on that. I agree. 5-year would have saved us $800,000 a year. That's a big chunk of change. So we got a 1 year and we lost out on $800,000. But so you're looking for the whole discussion to go? Kevin, I'm sorry, Mr. Agia, you wanted something split?
right, so Mr. Pacheco, it sounds like he's asking for the different, we have the two bids now.
Yeah.
He's looking to have both of those, him negotiate with those individual people. What I'm saying is I'm comfortable with the vans because we had no real competition in the vans so we never promised any other van vendor that we were gonna go out on a 1 year and then rebid it. But we did, on the other side, say that we were gonna go out 1 year. There wasn't multiple options, there wasn't option years or anything. So I don't feel comfortable that we told vendors that we were gonna do it 1 year and then we were gonna rebid the process. Because in essence, if we allow what Mr.
But that
Pacheco's
would
asking,
would that preclude others from bidding on that?
So basically, the only thing I can do now is negotiate with, we can negotiate with anybody.
Right. 'Cause it's not 30 days.
Basically, we could go to the van vendor,
Yeah.
and we can negotiate with the van vendor,
Right.
and anyone who had the capability of bidding that. Now, there are tons of national companies who have the capability of bidding on those vans.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that if the only person who has the background is the person who's currently doing the job for the van piece, the only one who bid on it. No one else has ever bid on that particular portion. So as Kevin said, that piece.
So is there a motion to move that forward?
so moved.
This would be Les McKinney-Vento.
Correct.
Okay.
Made by Mr. Aguirre, second by Mr. Hetzler. Roll
Special
call.
advance minus McKinney-Vento.
Yeah.
So let's take that one.
Special education vans without McKinney Vento.
Minus
Yeah.
McKinney-Vento.
Yep.
She's writing that down. Roll call.
Roll call.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
So that'll get referred to the full committee for further discussion. Now, the second one you're looking to do is to
The second one is,
non-special ed?
no, it's special
Oh,
ed,
Special ed,
yellow bus service.
okay.
So those are not,
Both together, right? Because we have
Two
regular
different
yellow
vendors.
buses.
yeah, so this would be, because the regular ed has to go 30B.
Right.
The McKinney-Vento has to go 30B.
Right.
And the trips, the field trips have to go 30B, but these two pieces don't have to go 30B.
So, I guess the question I have is, if it's not required under 30B because it's special ed, what prohibits you from inviting anybody who's interested in bidding to bid? I understand.
It would be,
I
right.
understand if it's 30B, it's gotta be either the lowest responsive bidder, right? You can only negotiate with that individual.
I can only negotiate with the bidder who
You
has been
can't
awarded the
change
contract.
the scope
Right.
of the bid
Right,
significant enough where
Yep.
it would put someone who didn't bid at a disadvantage.
right.
But if this is gonna be a new proposal, couldn't anybody bid on that?
Yes, if they had the ability to have enough equipment to bid on it, yes, they could. The difference is that with the vans, we already know that no one else bid.
Right, that, we
That
disposed
was
of that. I'm
beside
talking
that.
about this one
So
here.
this one here-
I'm just trying
yeah,
to
this-
speak to Mr. Aguirre's point, because I agree
This
with
one
him
had a
on
bidder.
some level.
So this one had a bidder.
Because if we said to vendors, hey, listen, we're gonna do a 1 year bid, and now we're sort of gonna change that midstream, you know, that one doesn't sit as well as it should with me, because I agree. If these people have been doing business with us, we told them this is what we're gonna do, and then all of a sudden now, short way through it, we sort of change our minds on it, say, well, we thought we were gonna do it that way, but we're not, we're gonna do it this way. But if it doesn't preclude anybody from bidding, then I think it answers that piece.
But there won't be a bid, is the what?
Yeah,
So
what I'm-
if,
yeah.
if what Mr. Pacheco's suggesting, and this is what I think you're saying, is if he's successful by going to the current vendors and saying, we need to
wouldn't require
negotiate
to
this
go out to
down.
bid.
We're not gonna go out to bid in the future, we're just gonna give you a 5-year contract, a 3-year contract at a lower rate.
Right.
To me, that's not a fair,
No,
like what we said.
No, I get you.
So-
So how many people did we have bid for that?
Two.
Two.
2 bid on that originally.
So couldn't you deal with both of them
Could,
and say, okay, here's the spec.
but
this is
at
what we're
that
gonna do.
point,
And then no
If
one
we
gets
open
left
it,
out, and
right.
then the other one says, hey, wait a minute, I can do better than the company who's got it
but would I
now.
not open it up then if I'm going to go to more than one vendor? Wouldn't I open it up to all of them again?
Yeah, I would suggest you do that.
So at that
But if
point,
you already
why would I
know-
negotiate and not go to IFB? You know what I'm saying? If I'm talking to you as that vendor, and I'm just talking to you
guess-
with that vendor,
I get,
that's one thing. But if I'm gonna open it up,
I don't,
then I would open it up.
I probably,
And then if it comes back,
yeah,
right, and then if it comes back that one better or two, I just have a tough time, and Mr. Aguirre is right. If you said to people, listen, this is what we're gonna do, then I think on some levels, we owe it to those, on a lot of levels, not just
we
on
have to
some. but-
keep our integrity on that.
right.
issue.
Well,
Right.
and the other piece is if I'm talking to you as the only vendor,
Yeah,
that's the conversation we're having. I'm not using your price against this one.
Right.
Not that I would, but the transparency side of this is saying, well, you're doing it for 2 million and he's gonna do it for 1.9 million, and then I'm gonna go back to you and say, I got 1.9 million, can you do it for 1.8? And the only person that's gonna know that is me and the people who are talking, but that's
Right.
not what should be done. That's not transparent.
no.
But transparent
But
is
I
me
think-
dealing with you only.
But I think or do it the IFB and let everybody take a crack at it and then see what the bid comes back as. And you could always throw it out, or you could look at it, and then because it's not 30B and at a lowest responsive bidder, you could go back
You
to
can
those
always
two anyway.
negotiate at the end with that one.
Because you're not changing the scope of it.
That's what I'm saying. So if I did that, if I negotiated with you as that vendor for the yellow
No,
bus service.
No, hold on a second, Mr. Pacheco. What I'm saying is if you do the IFB, you put it out, let everybody who wants in on it,
Yep.
get in on it. You get two companies that bid on it. One gives you a price of X, one gives you a price of Y. And you say, wait a minute,
Does-
you could still go back to those two and say,
I
wait,
can't once I go IFB.
you sure you can?
Now I have to throw the bids out. I have to throw the bids out. I can't negotiate until I award a contract. The IFB process doesn't allow me to do that. The reason why we did it last time was this committee,
Yeah.
the full committee, voted to approve that contract. They were the awarding authority
Right,
of record. So I negotiated with that person.
right.
What would happen here is if I couldn't negotiate with two people.
Right,
If the IFB process said that you were the winner,
Right.
then I couldn't talk to
then
you.
you couldn't, you'd have to go
I'd
with
have
the
to
lowest
either throw it out
responsive bid, or
and say
throw it
I'm
out,
gonna go,
rebid.
and now I'm just gonna open it up for negotiation, so.
Right.
So, to that point, when we were trying to get this done, I had suggested that you go to the current people last year and negotiate with them, which you could have done the same thing you're recommending now with one vendor. You could have went to the two people that were doing it last year individually to extend those contracts, so that which we had done years in the past.
But were those 5 years? Those
Right,
are-
but
I
those,
don't think there were
but those,
five,
but
but-
they were not specific in what they were doing.
The only
So
reason I
the-
ask that is, I guess, and I just learned it through this process last year, that if there were 5, you can't extend them.
The 5 years can only be extended by the city council.
Right,
And 5 years is the max.
Right,
You have to go
that's
out.
what it's-
Right.
5
The
years is the
3-year
max.
you could
and
extend.
we couldn't do like, another additional year on
Yeah.
that.
I-
I didn't
The
know
reason
that.
why I
That's
couldn't
what
go,
I was asking.
right, but the reason why I couldn't go backwards with last year's proposal was the fact that we had separated them into silos. They weren't separated into silos before. Everybody took a bite of what they wanted.
Yep.
And that unfortunately didn't work. The current system works. Any glitches we're having in transportation right now is due to the fact that our school times, start times, are still too close together.
So I would say this, I think you'd have more leverage negotiating like you're proposing it, but I just have a tough time. This is me personally, I'm not speaking for anybody. I think maybe Mr. Aguirre shares that same concern, that I think if we told, individuals that this is what we're gonna do, it sort of changes that, and so,
I understand.
I'd have a little difficulty with that one. Not that I don't think you'd have a better shot in negotiating with who's doing it now, and saying, hey, what can you do for us going forward if I gave you a 5-year? But I think it leaves out others that could give you a fairly decent price, if not a better price, if they know what they're dealing with.
Sure.
And if it was just like the first one, where it was just one company, different. This one, there were multiple ones. I think if I'm that other company, I'm saying, hey, wait a minute, you didn't even give me a shot. And you told me you were going to 1 year, I was going to get a shot at it, and now you went and locked someone up for 5, and I didn't even get a chance to jump in on that. So, I don't know. Is there any further discussion, Mr. Edsel?
On the same topic, so the company that gave us a really good deal that never got signed, that was just the vans, or was it the vans and the bus?
It was the Vans and McKinney-Vento.
Right, so we gotta take McKinney-Vento out, because it's a
Right.
30B issue,
It's a
right?
30B issue.
Right, okay. I'm
But
happy
we
with
were-
that. I
but
like,
we
I
were-
like the vans idea, they got a bad deal,
Yeah.
right? If you can negotiate with that company, I think they deserve it. Hopefully they can do what they offered to do last year, because that was gonna be helpful. As far as the other stuff, I wanna go back out, I wanna go to bid, and I want everybody to have a chance to bid on it, because that's what we said we'd do.
Yep.
I have 3 concerns. One is the software.
Yep.
We're done, software's installed, everybody knows how
Software's
to use it?
installed.
It's-
They're actually they've started receiving the second round of training now.
All right, so when we go out to bid this time,
Everything, all the routes will be done.
that was a huge hang-up for us last year, and it
Yes.
ended up coming back to haunt us, and I just
Yes.
want to make sure that that's done.
Yep.
Okay. Tiering,
Yes.
what are we looking at? Because if there's a chance that we can make tiering better, and then that
We're
tiering
gonna have
has...
to make some changes.
Right, and not only that, we're talking a lot about recess on another side of things, like if we're gonna start, I don't know, so you might want to change start times, end times, for whatever reason. Can we get that hammered out before we put the bids out?
We have no choice. So,
Right.
so we're dealing with that now. So we're actually gonna start meeting with principals, next week. And those principal meetings will be basically looking at their start and stop times.
Yep.
And how we can align 2 schools with no issues. To be safe, we need 45 minutes. An hour would be even better. The problem is, of course, the city of Fall River is got a lot of construction, and it's always gonna have a lot of construction. It just seems that there's an abundance of
There is a lot,
construction
yeah.
this year.
They're a little
where
backed up.
It's a little tough to get around the city. So we're
little backed
seeing
up.
that with the bus transportation. We're seeing buses getting to schools 5 minutes late, 7 minutes late,
Right.
which
Affects-
now
Right.
keeps compounding, so that second school is in worse shape. We don't have enough time. We were trying to do it with 35 minutes. With no construction, 35 minutes is perfect. With construction, it's impossible.
Right, so
So that part has to be done.
You'll
So
have
we'll be
this
coming
done.
back. We'll be coming back to
For
you
approval.
before the IFB hits the streets.
which is why you
to-
targeted February, not
Exactly,
January.
right.
All right, because I'm wondering, like, the sooner the
more
better,
time.
right?
Yeah, I need more time to do
Okay.
the bells. And where we can do the bells, we're going to. If we can't come up with that system that works, with the ELT schools, we already have that big day. So you can't move them too much earlier, and we can't move them too much later. And I'm not quite sure how the CBA piece is gonna work out, because we do have parameters in the CBA that is.
Right, so
that
we
is-
have to talk to
yeah.
them as well and try to...
And there might be ways to work around some of it, so. There's a little bit of work to do in January, a lot of work to do in January, so that February becomes, smooth as silk.
All right, so with that being said, I think I'd like to make a motion that all the other transportation items get moved to the full committee, right? That's what we're looking for here?
They don't need to, they don't
No,
even,
we
they
don't
don't
even
even
need
need
to talk
to,
about it?
because
Okay.
the only one I needed
You
permission
just
for
wanted it-
was that one.
Right, so we're gonna negotiate.
And the
other
rest
one
you're
at
gonna
the end of
see
the
before
year
we
or
send
just
out.
prior to the end of the year, we'll
Right.
do the edit.
Right,
Right.
so hopefully we get this hearing and everything's good too.
So we have tiering, we're gonna get better tiering.
Right, right.
We're gonna need the committee it's not, all you know, and you know this, that there'll be people that are upset, but we gotta get
Save money, it's gonna benefit everyone.
right.
On the
Second.
tiering, just, I would recommend exactly what Mr. Hetzler said, do it sooner. Last year, when people got noticed way too late, it wasn't good for us, wasn't good for everybody.
Yeah.
So the sooner we can do those things, the better. We also have ELT, somebody mentioned ELT. You're giving us a report on ELT, there might be changes there. We might, you know, so there's other things that, a lot of moving parts, so
Yes.
we're looking forward to the info. My question is on the people driving the vans. And are we going to do anything with, I think we were going to buy one,
So
do
we
like
have
a
two
pilot. I
ones.
really want to do a pilot for picking kids up to school to a school that is, we shouldn't have
Talking
people.
about attendance issue.
Attendance
For attendance issues, like we should have a,
We just ordered 3 vehicles for that.
so,
Like
if I'm a
strictly-
principal, vice principal, and it really bothers me when we hear, oh, a kid's not in school. Well, if we can't go pick them up with the attendance, you know, legally, to go out and get the kid, get him into school, and he's in school for 80% of that day, I think we're just missing the boat, that we have, like, there's other issues, but
Yeah.
I'm just imploring you to
Absolutely.
do something with that so we can
We've
see if
already
it
approved
works,
the purchase, and we just gotta finish getting them, and
and then people to drive it,
Right.
so licenses and
Those
everybody in
won't
the
be-
office.
Those won't be 7Ds. So basically, if, the rule with the 7D is that if it's a route, a fixed route, it needs to have that license. So if you're picking up students on a sporadic basis, so I'm not going to same house for the 182 days, then I can use a regular vehicle to do that. These vehicles will be equipped to carry students, but they will not have the flashers and things like that.
Yeah, no,
It's a
this-
different license.
And what I was referring to is the people in the office that we
Oh,
talked
and the
about
people in the
before.
office, yes.
I think everybody that we can get to drive a 7D,
Yeah, school.
you know, should
Right, school
help
board,
us, so.
exactly.
With that, I yield.
Any further discussion on transportation? Next item is new business. Any topics for discussion could not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours prior to tonight? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Made by
Second.
Mr. Agia, second by Mr. Hetzler. Roll call.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Hetzler?
Yes.
Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.